And yeah, please sign in. Like I said, the homework is supposed to hold you accountable. Not necessarily like in school where you're gonna fail or something, but this is your personal time, your personal commitment, and whatever we can do to keep pushing you to improve yourself, to do something better, do something for the community, then we'll do that. So if you guys have an electronic device, if you guys haven't seen, there's a URL for this. I thought it would change as long as you guys were following, but just keep up with where I'm at. There's not so many small text, so you don't have to worry as much. Today's presentation class is how does one learn to program? And I've already gotten some feedback from another person that says, oh, I thought you were going to teach us code and practical things, and in fact, you'll see in a bit that it's quite not that thing. But I meant it to be that kind of like question, like posing a question that was deep. A little bit about myself. I have over 10 years in software engineering. I have a master's in electrical engineering from UCLA. I founded Tech Tuesdays in RSVP with a couple other folks. I'm still a Mootools developer, an ex-Googler. I used to work for the Google Photos team around 2009. And I'm fluent in JavaScript, PHP, and many, many more web technologies. If you guys need to contact me or follow me or whatever you want to do, that's pretty much it. Facebook.com/IBOlmo. You guys are welcome to have me as a friend and whatever. We're all friendly here. So like I was saying, this is not really how to get started programming. It's not like I'm going to teach you download this software, do this. What I'm trying to do today is tell you why it's important to program. How do you drive yourself to program? Because if you'll notice, it's kind of tough. I'm sure some of you guys already tried to start, but you let it pass and stopped. And then how do you keep going? So I'm going to teach you some life lessons that I've gone through for the past 10 years. And especially I'm going to help you navigate the waters because it is a large field. And where do you start? What do you do? So the most important question out of this talk is, why should I learn? Why should I program? And most people don't start with that question. Most people start with, how do I benefit from programming, right? What's my end game on this? And what I want to say is that programming is about developing solutions to problems. It's about taking them apart. It's about developing a skill set like architecture or carpentry. It's something that you develop along the way. It's not something that in 2 weeks or 3 months you get. And it's something that you have to be very patient about. You shouldn't learn to code. You should focus your time elsewhere if you expect it to make it big or you expect it to like get it right now and done. And especially if you're shy. Believe it or not, we nerds, we geeks, we're actually very social. We like to share problems, we like to share solutions. So if you're shy or you're not easily motivated, programming really isn't for you. And pretty much what this sums up is that it's going to be tough. Most people nowadays, they put a website up and they expect it to go, and then by the end of the week, you're like a programmer. But it's not the case. You're going to get frustrated and you will give up more than once. I know when I started out, I gave up more than once on a different project or idea just because I couldn't come through with it. But then hopefully this presentation jumps up, like pushes you forward beyond those steps. So the first thing that you got to do is you got to figure out a purpose, a drive. Because if you're going to learn something so painful as programming is, I mean, over the long run, you got to have a purpose behind it. So you got to decide what is the project that you want to work on. Or do you want to research things and fix bugs from other places, other companies? There's a bunch of them now available. So you can already start working with Facebook or Google without you even being part of the company. You can clone or improve an existing idea. That's one of the best things because you already know where to go. And we'll talk about that in a bit. And obviously pair up with people that are here in RSVP. We're starting the academy, but out there we're pushing people to continue working on whatever they want to work on and socialize. And of course, do challenges. There's so many of them now available through the .orgs and nonprofits and civic minded and National Hack Day and all these different things. So you don't start by saying what is a tool to do, but what is it that I want to accomplish. And the way that I describe it to most folks is that, what if somebody asked you to do something you've never done? And in this example, it would be building a house. And for most people, it seems like a daunting task. But as far as an engineer or like a programmer at heart and doing this for quite a long time, I can tell you that the simplest solution is, let me ask you, what are you looking for? Show me a couple of houses that you like, different components of it. Let me look at the blueprints from different architects of those houses, and let me ask them for advice, as well as city and planning and zoning and different things, and just ask questions and put everything together, and you end up with the new plan, the new blueprint. And that's exactly what we do all the time in programming. We don't start from scratch. Just imagine doing just a puzzle that is a number of pieces long, and they've asked you to start working on it. Doesn't matter how good you are at recognizing shapes, you're going to end up faulting a lot because you don't know where the little dots are going to. So never start with an empty canvas. And if you'll notice in the future, and some of the slides are coming up, that's exactly what all of us do in the industry. And that's how we make money, actually. We're being efficient. We have an inventory of software. And whenever we have a new client, we just look up things from that inventory and we use it. So what is it going to take? You gotta take patience, and you shouldn't be afraid of pressing enter and running the damn thing. You know, a lot of people think that when they press enter or they fault or they get an error, they're breaking things or they're not doing something right. It's a process. That's what you got to do, and it's helpful if you have an aptitude, willing to learn, educate yourself, to improve and investigate. But it's a lot of hard work at the beginning and a lot of believing. So after hearing about all, like I said, all the stress that you're going to go into, why do you still want to code? And we already talked about that, but so you still want to code, you still want to learn. Most people want to start by choosing a language. And my feeling about languages is that they're all the same ice cream, but with different colors. Here, if anybody doesn't know, a language, all it is an English instructions for the computer. That's all it is. It's like a cooking recipe. You know, you go from top to the bottom, and different languages have different rules and different things like that. And you will get into it for each project that you guys are going to do. I use up to 5 languages per project, really. You're not going to be using just one. And in this case, I'm showing you, it's kind of blurry up here, but I'm showing you that the exact same code in one language is very similar along other languages. So once you pick up one language, which is what I'm encouraging you to at least do, you will notice that jumping between other languages is very easy. So it's not about learning a new language, but it's about picking that project. I go back to that. And again, if you're not familiar, and this really deserves a course by itself, a whole classroom on languages and what is it all about, but we're not talking about that today. We're giving you the big picture and pushing you towards considering it and actually committing to learning. But all of them have variables, types, functions, control flow, and I can talk about different ways of explaining it, but all it is they're all instructions, and they're all the points and times and information about data, and that's it. They're all the same thing. And you choose by merit. You choose by the need, not by the merit. That means that if I want to do a mobile application, I don't choose C#, although there is a project that does it with C#. Like the most custom one is JavaScript or using a different language of that sort. And you won't know that from the get-go, but you can easily ask us, and I can guide you forward to what you need. And if you do want a specific class over this, just let us know, so that way we'll know what to give you guys next time. So okay, we're still talking about how to choose. And the most important part that I want to get through to you guys today is stick to a scripting language at the beginning. There's C, there's C++, there's Fortran, COBOL, all these guys. Don't mess with them, in my opinion. Stick to PHP, JavaScript, Python, Ruby, and I have a list there linked for all the other ones that are available. There's even Go now. It's just faster, easier to debug in most cases, and it's cross-platform. Any single computer will run these things. So you don't have to worry about that, including mobile devices with JavaScript. So obviously another way to choose is if you're getting paid, do that. It's as simple as that. If you already know that you're going to use a certain framework, PhoneGap for mobile development, Unity 3D to create games, just learn what Unity 3D or the other ones, that's what they're using. So just use that language. And of course, like I mentioned, ask your friends that are nearby here, ask them what they're working on, and just jump on. So this is a cheap answer, but Google is your best friend when learning. Most people think books, going to classes like this is going to be the best way to learn, but it's not. You guys have to put the time in. And my best friend for learning is Google. I mean, for the past 10 years, I think I've only spent about $200 worth of books. And this has paid dividends over the long run. Because as a software engineer, I mean, you make a pretty penny. So, what do you do when you're searching? Okay, so some of the things that you should look for are comparisons of language. If you already know one ahead of time, look for the comparison. Or if you're switching between different ones, especially after you've gone through one stage, do that. It's amazing how much you can learn about your original language from a different perspective. There's actually a saying from the book Pragmatic Programmer that says that every serious programmer should learn one programming language per year. And there's hundreds of them now, so it's totally possible. Look for the best practices. When I pick up a new language, I never bother looking at the references. That's the last thing that I do. You know, the syntax, the statements, I don't care about that. What I look for is what are most people in the industry learning already about, and what did they figure out through the years that they've been in it. So just look for the best practices. Skip all the garbage and references. You don't have to read the manual. Look for the gotchas in particular. JavaScript is probably the worst of them all with all these gotchas, but other languages have their own gotchas. So this is basically the order that I do when I pick up a new language. And of course, there are books. And one thing that I want to note out of this slide is that I don't recommend from the get-go any book in particular about a language. It seems a little bit ironic, but when you're programming, like I mentioned before, it's not about the language, it's about how you are programming it. Are you efficient? Are you using design patterns? Are you using object-oriented paradigms? Procedural calls? All these things are foreign to you guys, but all these books will talk about it. In particular, Clean Code and Code Complete are really interesting to look up. And I'm linking to actually free ebooks, so you don't have to spend anything. Again, Google is your best friend. And this is a little aside just because I love this little trick, and you can look for anything with this. So you just put the book that you're looking for or the article you're looking for, and just put ext for extension, and then PDF. You can put extension MP3 as well, by the way. And you can find a bunch of different things through Google. And it's totally legit because it's publicly available, right? So there's other advanced operators, and I encourage you to play with it. So other resources, I love blogs. They were my #1 way of getting to meet other people, as well as learning about their experiences. The blogs talk about the problems with the language, the new interesting things that are coming out of the language way before its time. They talk about how they resolve issues. It's one of the best things that you can do. And like I said, you don't have to learn anything. You just follow what they're going through. Here are a couple that I know, but if you just put blog, put tag, whatever you're interested in, you're going to get a bunch of them. I encourage you to follow them on Twitter, Facebook, and also use the IFTT, which is if this, then that service, to get the RSS feed. Again, a lot of jargon that you might not be familiar with, but look up that article and it'll explain how it works. Basically what it does is, as soon as somebody posts something on a blog article, you will get notified about it. So you don't have to keep going back to their website. I love slideshows. If you guys weren't here today, this is readily available to you guys. So you can zoom through this quickly. If you notice all the slides, you can just read them. I did it on purpose. One of the things that we're trying to accomplish is for people to get this great content that we're developing here and go beyond the borders of the RGB, so we can start impacting other communities. So these two places are great, and again, simple search is awesome. YouTube is my #1 pick for how to get more information and educated on things that are coming up. Conferences in particular are my favorite thing. I just did a search for JavaScript conference, and I got 40-some thousand results in videos. So I watched, like the recent things that I've watched are like woodworking stuff, so like a woodaholic, I guess. I love that. The other things that I watch are Harmony, which is the next version of JavaScript that is coming up. People are already talking about it and playing with it and using it. React.js, real-time protocols. You can actually view how Google, Twitter, and all these guys have architecture their backend systems. So how do they scale to millions and millions of users per second, like active on your website? They go over all that. Each company, in particular Google and all the other big brands, they have an internal initiative to allow you to have open source software and openness in the community. It's one of their ways of recruiting new talent, basically. And another way of also double checking your code. It's one of those paradigms, more eyes that are looking at your code, less bugs. So one thing that I wanted to talk about as well, let you guys know a nice tip, is I don't actually waste all of my life viewing videos. I love watching them at 1.25 or 1.5 times the speed. They kind of start sounding like chipmunks depending on the person, but you can listen into the background as you're doing other things, or this one is 24 minutes, and doing the 1.5, you can bring it down to 60 minutes. And who doesn't have 60 minutes? And Paul Irish here is talking about high-performance websites. So anyway, obviously there's references. I knocked them a little bit earlier, but they're still really useful, especially when you're getting down to the nitty-gritty, like something subtleties in the language. Obviously go to each individual language website. They're really great, especially the comment section of each of those pages is really interesting. The lynda.com, there's actually a free access for a lot of things right now. Tets Plus is really amazing. They have not just coding, photography, Photoshop, and all these other things. So you can jump on that right now. And in particular, Tets Plus, I want to give them another shout out because they invite people from the community to create content. So one way you guys can start making money, and that's one of the homework, by the way, is you can create a getting started guide for language, and you can submit it to Tets Plus, and you can get paid for it. So online education, I put an asterisk because I'm not a big fan personally. I know there's people that like it right now. All I have to say about it is I have learned more by doing than by watching. Like all these things that I'm watching is just so that I can get the words, the jargon, just so that I have a big overview about it. I'm not expecting to win big and just start, but it's about having a conversation with somebody and say, you know, Socket.io this, I need to do UDP for this. You won't know that unless you have that breadth of information. And all these things, you have to spend so much time and investments, and when something goes wrong, you're on your own. I have a bunch of reasons why I don't like the online education, but your mileage may vary. It might be really helpful for you guys. So at this point, you've already chosen a language. You already know that it's going to be tough. And one of the last things that you have to have like perfectly well done is the development environment. We're going to talk about editors, terminals, package management, all these different things. And each one of these deserve its own class. So if any of this stands out to you guys, or you just want me to go from the top to the bottom, let us know. So editors, or integrated development environments, IDEs. There you have both options. On the left side is mostly manual, like you're literally typing it in key code by key code, and you're launching Linux tutorials here and there, or you're launching different instances here and there. And then IDEs, they're all involved together, they're all integrated. Again, I'm just putting in this resource available so you guys can look into it more. In particular, if you're starting out, you might want to try Cloud9. I know some people have benefited from it. But I personally use Sublime Text 3 and package manager. That's really all I need. Well, that's because I have a lot of experience, but again, they're mine, they're very. So So we talked a little. I mentioned a little bit about package management, and I talked about finding a project, finding packages that you should work on, and these package managers, what they do is they help you bring those plugins, those libraries, those frameworks into your development environment, into your folder. And before that, you had to grab from the internet, download it, unzip it, all these different things. And these softwares, that's what they do for you. They make life easy, and they also help you find stuff that's already been done. So I encourage you to, again, look at each one and learn more about them. And one thing that I want to point out is that each one of them nowadays, they have a version control in the backend, like their repository where they keep all the source code and history of it. So you can see a project's trending, their vitality really. Most of the time that you go onto the internet, you're looking for something and you're not sure what it is. But with tools like GitHub, and I think you'll notice I'm going to keep pushing GitHub to everybody, but with GitHub, you can see the frequency of submissions, how busy is it, which you can find there, as well as a punch card, which is really interesting. Where are most people working at during the day and during the weekday? What you're looking at right now is the graph of commits and who is the person that is most committing. So you can click on the person, you can follow them, and you can see what they're doing. And one of the cool things about GitHub is you get to have, information about what they're doing. It's kind of like the Facebook of nerds, I guess. So I mentioned version control. To put it in simple terms, it allows you to travel back in time as well as work in parallel universes. If you ever coded, or let me put it in simple terms, if you ever wrote an article or a document and you saved it, closed it, tried to open it again, and you realize you made a mistake and you want to go back, but you can't anymore? Well, Git, Mercurial, SVN, CSV, all these guys, and I don't care which one you really use. I just want you to use one of them. Because now you can save it, you can close it, and you can go back in time. You can find something else you did version-wise. And you can work with somebody else, which is what Git and Mercurial are really good about, is that somebody could be working on this part of the code and put it in terms that you might understand, as well as you're learning something and you want to share with us that I'm stuck somewhere. You can just share with me your repository, and I can find out what exactly you did, and I can go back in time and review it for you. So it's a really powerful concept, and again, it deserves its own class. So this is an intro. Virtual machines, I had mentioned that you shouldn't worry about messing up your computer, but being totally honest, there is like one or a few commands that you can do on the prompt in the terminal that will ruin your computer. In particular, delete and remove, or rename, RM. Those two will kill your computer, especially if you do it on certain directories. So my best advice, as well as, again, leapfrog you to the future and get you working really fast, is you can just use what's called Vagrant and virtual boxes and virtual machines. That's the underlying technology. This picture shows basically Windows 7, and on the inside of that window is Linux, running in the same machine. So if you're not familiar with the concept, or you've always wanted to do the following but you don't have this platform, virtual machines will allow you to do it. There's no reason anymore. I linked to a Vagrant cloud box. It's basically a predefined box that it has everything installed. The one line of data, of information that you put in the code after you install Vagrant and all the other things will just run everything, download it, and set up the box for you. So it'll run, you'll have a working environment. So all these things that I was talking about, you can just jump ahead. So you gotta be committed to program. You gotta be patient. You're gonna have to be educated and continuously get involved and stay alert of all the things that are coming up. And we talked about your environment. So now it's deserving to talk about coding and some practical matters when you are coding. I had mentioned it, and I'll mention it again until it beats into you. Don't code something just for coding it. Find out if somebody already did something. If you have millions of hours during the day, then yeah, okay, start again and create it. But for those especially you guys that are starting out, and you want to see if something that you do, especially you change one thing, what happens, just start with something that's already done. You've used GitHub Explorer and Mercurial and all these different services to find projects. You'll find that most people already resolved what you're trying to accomplish. Unless you're extremely specialized in the field where you're developing something as you're going along, and that's not what we're talking about today, you should just reuse what other people are doing. You're going to jump ahead millions of light years over other people that are starting out. So here are links to all these search boxes and search availabilities. You're going to find hundreds of thousands of projects and codes and lines. And again, remember, package managers are your friends. Here's an example of a search. It's a really vague search that searches for 3D. And in GitHub, you're going to get JavaScript 3D library, which is visualizations and games. Engines actually use that on top of it. Engine 3D, I think it's a game thing. This is 3D printing here. So you're going to find all kinds of things. And what I encourage you to do is sort by most stars. People nowadays, they're starring projects because they're like, oh, I like this. They're doing it right or whatever. So you use that, you automatically get to the ones that are most trending probably. Or the more mature ones, I should say. And you can search by code actually. If you have a project that you don't know what happened to this line of code or who else is using this certain thing. I do it all the time for my clients actually, because they get another person's code and they don't know what happened to it and it doesn't have any of the names of what they use in the packages. So you just use the code search, put in the exact code that you use, like snippets of it, and you're going to get results back of, what are the projects that are using it. So if you're starting out and you don't know why something isn't working, just use this code search and you're going to get a lot of examples of an actual working one. And you can compare the two. And please search by language. That's one of the beautiful things in there too, is that you can search by language and you really narrow it down really quickly. I love this feature of GitHub. They released it a couple of months ago, and it's called GitHub Subscribe for the Explorer. If you go to the Explorer, they have really nice Picasa-esque kind of things where they have all the projects. And I hate going to it every single day. But this way, the daily, it just sends me an email of, hey, here are the new projects. Here are the ones that are trending. Here are the ones that are that your friends, your people that you follow, that they liked. So you don't have to do any of the legwork anymore. You'll get that email about all the cool projects that are coming out. So obviously, again, you have to start reading the source code. It's amazing how people neglect to read the source code of what they're using. But you get so much insight about what happened, what made people do certain things. And this is the point, after you've gone through all those different other steps, this is the point where you start creating things and you start developing things. And whenever you're stuck, which you will, it's guaranteed. It's a simple answer. Just ask the damn question. You can go to all these websites, Stack Overflow, Quora, just to ask. You can go to the individual user forum for the project or the language, and they'll tell you the answer. You can actually go to the Facebook group. We have one. It's closed, but you can invite yourself to it, and you can just post it, and myself or one of the other guys on our off time will answer it. I think we've done it before, where somebody from Brownsville was trying to figure out how to charge someone, how to what is the particular framework that they should use, and different things. And in particular, I want to emphasize the IRC channels. Anybody use IRC channels here? One. All right, that's fine. So IRC channels I discovered by working with MooTools, and it's something that I've never let go of now. It's online chat rooms for nerds, basically. This is an example of this is webchat3node.net, and this is Python. So some of the guys on the right are actually Python organizers, or they are the actual maintainers of the language. So if you see something that you have a question about in Python, they'll tell you right now. And it's just a chat room that goes on forever. Here are some things about Internet Relay Chat, which is what IRC is. There are many professionals from Fortune 500 companies just sitting there, and they're from around the world. When I was at MooTools, I still am, but I used to work for people from Italy, Japan, Sweden. So most of those people are now in different things, and I'll get to it. So it's really enlightening to get other people's perspective on the problem, and it's really interesting how they come up with the solution, as well as really fun when they tell you RTFM, which is read the freaking manual. So don't get offended and don't offend others as well. There will be trolls, there will be people that are just blaming you, but it's part of the internet culture, really. The golden rule is always search for it on Google. Like, spend at least 15 minutes trying to figure out the answer and then ask it, and you'll be fine. Just beware of files. This is the internet relay chat. Hackers and not mischievous people, but other people are there. So I wouldn't accept anything transfer unless you really know the person. So regarding asking a question, it seems like a stupid thing to state, but you'd be amazed at how difficult it is to answer a question when you don't ask it in a certain way. We're all there to help, actually. That's why we love being idle there. We get to connect with people we haven't connected with in a long time. And at the same time, we get to share our body of information with people. So when you do ask a question, which I encourage you to do, just try to include the following. Describe what you have tried, what did you expect it to do, what happened, if anything, and what are the errors, and mention what projects you are doing, which they sometimes conflict and mess with each other. And use gist and paste them to show the code. Simple as that. So at this point, you should be already committed. You picked up a language or two. You've asked questions. You've done your research. You've done your education. And this is the point where it starts getting a lot of fun. You start to contribute back, because all this time you've been following other projects, blogs in particular. They're just doing it to provide information for somebody else, and that's their way of giving back, because we all gone through it. In a way, most of the chat rooms and IRC chats and a lot of the post moderators, they all understand what you're going through. We've all been through it. So at the point that you start feeling comfortable and you see a question and you know how to answer it, I challenge you and I encourage you to answer it. Be part of the conversation, be part of the answer. It's all about becoming from consumers to producers. And especially when it comes to fixing bugs and sending enhancements or open sourcing a private project, you really start to collaborate and enjoy the process of it. You get to hear feedback on your pull requests. What that means is that, say you worked on adding tests or a feature to React.js. Like one of the repositories or one of the projects for Facebook. And if you submit it, they'll tell you whether it's coded correctly, if it's efficient, if there are things that they would change, and you would work with them. It's as if you're working for them. And this has benefited me. I know it seems like you're investing more than you're getting back, but over the long run, you're going to benefit from it. My experience with contributing to MooTools, I contribute to other projects, but MooTools in particular, it gave me some satisfaction for taking ownership in the small project that ballooned, and everybody uses it still today, actually. It's kind of like a funny story, but MooTools became so popular that currently Internet Explorer, Mozilla, and all the other browsers, whenever they change implementations and they mess with MooTools, like some of the previous codes that we've built, they call it breaking the internet, because our code is all over the internet nowadays. We're number 2 from the list of frameworks being used in JavaScript. So it's I guess, like I said, it's really a lot of fun to have gone through that process, and it's one of the main reasons that Google employed me, actually. I am an electrical engineer, master's in UCLA, but they were really piqued and interested because of Google. And even as an undergrad, while I was starting out, I mentioned this to a couple of recruiting reps, and they all knew the project, so it was really surprising to me and a lot of fun. And this is not an isolated incident. A lot of people that are in open source contributing to it every day, they get hired out or they get invited elsewhere. The MooTools dev, for example, the majority of them, they're at Facebook. I get a recruitment email almost every month, every other month from different places. The latest one was Amazon. And then it's kind of fun that Google the recruiter sends me an email saying, "Hey, are you ready yet?" So I attribute it a lot to the stuff that I've done before and the things that we're doing now, but I encourage you again to get involved. So, how does one learn to program? Find a purpose, stay committed, choose a project and goal, and find packages to help you get started in the learning language. Set up the environment that you're comfortable in and that you're proficient at. Be part of a community and contribute back to it. If you do all these things, I guarantee you can pick up anything. It's a long road ahead, but it's a very satisfying one once you go through it, and you get to join this club. You know, all the programmers know what you've been through. So I mentioned that there will be homework, and this is totally optional. And again, this is very self-driven. I encourage you to do it. I passed around a sign-in sheet. If you haven't, afterwards, please sign in. I'm just going to email you and say, did you do the homework? Or in 2 weeks, we'll have another Code RGB, and I'll ask you there too, if you join us as well. In the next 2 weeks, we'll do another class. And if you notice, there were a couple of instances that I've asked you for your feedback. The evaluation that I'll pass out has another information about what you want to see next. So let me just quickly go through these because I think they're fun, but from your perspective, it might not be fun. But you have to do them, in my opinion. So, like I said, define a project. Doesn't have to be big or small. Just define it. Put it out there. Pick one language for that project. Based on what you decided to do, choose what is going to help you do it. Don't create something. Just choose what's going to be doing it, and that will pretty much tell you what language it will be. This is where it starts getting more challenging. Create a getting started guide for that language. I do this all the time. I make notes to myself and documentation to myself to really learn something. So doing this is going to really get you to learn it. Especially if you look at other getting started guides. You can see what other people look for and how they try to teach stuff to somebody else. Follow a blog, user, and YouTube channel. It's surprising to me how in the Valley we're so disconnected. Where everybody else on the internet, they're so connected. So this is only the beginning of like what I'm trying to motivate you to do is stay connected, especially with us. Set up that environment. It could be Vagrant, it could be anything else, but just set it up. Answer a question. So this is really interesting. If you can answer a question on Stack Overflow, that's awesome. Like you just contributed back. And join an IRC channel. We have an IRC channel on Freenode. It's Code RGB. So I know Justin hangs out on there, and I hang out on there. And hopefully in the future we'll have more people from the community sign up. But that's it. Thank you so much. The evaluation, you can go on there on your phone or whatever, and then I also have some handouts here. So any questions, or I know I kind of breezed through it.